If you're working under a toxic, credit stealing, or bullying manager, I know exactly what your default survival strategy is. Because you are a professional, you put your head down, try to avoid the blast zone, and hope your hard work will eventually speak for itself. But the truth is, your work will never speak for itself if your boss is the one holding the microphone. A toxic manager is not just an emotional drain, they are a strategic bottleneck, and they stand between your daily execution and the executive team. If they are taking credit of your wins or actively diminishing your reputation, you cannot outwork them. You have to out-strategize them. Today, I'm going to show you 3 specific emotionless tactics to protect your career momentum, bypass a toxic boss, and build undeniable executive visibility. I'll also share how 3 professionals use these exact moves to secure promotions despite their manager trying to hold them back. So let's start. The first one is visible ownership. Tactic number 1 is establishing a visible paper trail of your value. I call it visible ownership. Credit stealing boss thrive in the shadows. They take your one-on-one updates and repackage them as their own brilliant ideas in executive meetings. You have to cut off their supply without looking confrontational. You do this through strategic documentation. Let me tell you about Mark. Of course, I'm making up the name here for privacy's sake. He is an IT infrastructure manager. His director was notorious for presenting Mark's system upgrades as his own initiatives. Mark was frustrated and ready to quit. Instead, all I asked him to do was to change a few things in his communication strategy. So every time Mark completed a milestone, he stopped just telling his boss. He started sending a brief, bottom-line email to broader project stakeholders, including his boss's peers. The email simply read with very simple sentence. It said something like, "Team, to keep everyone aligned, here is the executive summary of the migration my team just completed and the bandwidth it frees up for your departments." And that's it. It goes something like that. He CC'd his boss, of course. Mark wasn't complaining or bragging. He was simply keeping everyone informed. But overnight, the executive realized who was actually driving the results. When a senior IT director role opened up, Mark bypassed his own boss and got the job. He claimed his credit by being relentlessly, publicly helpful. Now that is something that can change your career trajectory. So now let's move on to tactic number 2. So tactic number 2 is building your shadow network. If your direct manager is a bully or a blocker, your career cannot depend on their recommendation. You need horizontal allies. You need a network of leaders in other departments who can vouch for your executive presence when you aren't in the room. So I worked with Priya, a finance controller, right? Again, I'm making up the name here to keep privacy. Her VP was a micromanager who actively blocked her from presenting to the executive board because he wanted to maintain control. Instead of fighting her VP, Priya built a shadow network. She identified 3 department heads. It was specifically in sales, marketing, and operations, and set up bi-weekly 15 minutes coffee chat or any kind of casual chat, right? Her only goal was to ask a simple question. What is the biggest financial friction point your team is facing right now? And that's it, right? She is playing to her strengths. She used her expertise to quietly solve their problems. She became their go-to advisor. 6 months later, when a restructuring happened, the head of the sales specifically went to the CEO and demanded Priya be promoted to the VP of commercial finance because she was already acting like one. Her direct boss had no say in the matter. She built a bridge around the bottleneck. And that's tactic number 2. So let's move on to tactic number 3. Tactic number 3 is something that you must do. You must build an emotional firewall. Toxic managers feed on your reaction. If you get defensive, anxious, or start to over-explain yourself, you are playing their game. Quiet leaders often internalize this stress, which leads to burnout. You need to shift your mindset. Stop treating them like leaders and start treating them like a difficult client. Take James, again, name change for privacy purpose, a marketing manager working for a boss who sent aggressive late night emails questioning every decision. James used to spend hours drafting defensive replies. So when he started working with me, we instituted the emotional firewall. What is it, right? Instead of defending his methods, James shifted to hyper proactive, emotionless bottom lining. What I mean by that is he sent weekly status dashboards before his boss could ask for it, right? When the boss sent an aggressive email, James responded with one sentence, a very simple sentence. Like, for example, he wrote something like, "Understood, the data supports the path A for these 3 reasons. Do I have your approval to proceed, or do you prefer path B?" That's it. That one sentence is all he does. He asks a question. What kind of question? James removed all emotion and forced his boss to make a binary decision. It's a plan A or plan B, and that's it. It starved the boss of the anxiety he fed on. More importantly, it protected James' energy, giving him the mental bandwidth to focus on tactic 1 and 2 I spoke about earlier, which is building his brand. Right? Now, last thing that I wanted to say is Mark, Priya, or James, all the 3 people that I spoke about today, didn't wait for their toxic bosses to suddenly become better leaders. They took control of their own visibility. If you're currently trapped under a manager who doesn't see your value, or worse, actively hides it, you cannot afford to just keep your head down. You have to build your executive level influence, and you have to do it strategically. That is exactly why I created the 60-day leadership challenge. This is not just a course on surviving the workplace drama. This is a rigorous 60-day sprint designed for mid-level professionals to build an undeniable executive brand, map out a shadow network, and force a promotion conversion, regardless of who your boss is. I'll give you the exact scripts, templates, and frameworks to out-strategize the roadblocks in your career. Click the link in the description below to secure your spot in the challenge. Stop letting bad managers dictate your career trajectory. Let's get to work. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.